Hello friends, the human body is an amazing system, and scientists are still learning all about it. Funnily enough, researchers can launch rovers to Mars but still don't know for sure why our fingers wrinkle in the water, and all because the human body has real superpowers and amazing protective functions. We use these features every day, even though we don't know why our bodies behave in this particular way. Well, it's time to figure it out. Let's get it on. Goosebumps. You've probably noticed that goosebumps occur in response to different experiences. It can be happiness, cold, anxiety, fright, or even a response to some really beautiful music sounding in your headphones. The principle's quite simple. At the root of each hair there are tiny muscles. When these muscles tense or contract, they make your hair rise and your skin get covered in little bumps. Nothing complicated, but slightly pointless. This reflex goes all the way back to our ancestors though, and although now goosebumps basically don't do anything, in the distant past they were an important, even necessary bodily function. They raised the hairs in a cold environment to help them warm up. In a dangerous environment, the raised hair made animals visually more massive, more powerful, and more terrible. For example, porcupines have thorns that also raise this way. But how do you explain goosebumps caused by something pleasant? The latest scientific theory is that goosebumps are a part of a fight or flight response, a congenital survival mechanism that forces a person to react to everything, including pleasant music, in milliseconds. Also, don't forget the adrenaline rush that makes your heart beat faster, and yes, gives you goosebumps. Pruny fingers. Have you ever wondered why our skin on our fingers wrinkles in the water? Unlike other body parts, the skin on your fingers and toes, palms and feet becomes wrinkled after being in the water. It usually happens in about 5 minutes. As a child, it must have seemed funny to you, and with age it became something normal. But the reason for this remained unclear for a long time, even for scientists. Finally, surgeons noticed that if certain finger nerves are damaged, the skin does not wrinkle. Thus, pruny fingers are a sign that the nervous system is working properly. But nature couldn't make the skin wrinkle only for this, right? Well, that's true. Neuroscientist Mark Changizi from the 2AI Labs research laboratory is convinced that this is the result of adaptation. The fact is that fingers with wrinkles and bumps better hold both dry and wet objects. It turns out that our bodies remove excess moisture from the fingers and feet, allowing us to better hold objects, even while in the water. A short contact with water is not enough though. Our body turns on this function only when it's really necessary.
Can you hear me, sir? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes!
Shivering. In a very cold environment, when you're not just chilly but really cold, you can start shivering. And this, of course, is not just a random reaction. When your body temperature drops below normal, your body turns on the shivering mechanism to produce heat when your muscles contract quickly. Since you, its owner, aren't doing anything to warm up, it will cope on its own. Adenosine triphosphoric is the only source of energy in the body. When this acid decomposes, energy is released, which is used by the cells to carry out the life process, including the contraction of muscle cells. Thus, with muscle contractions, about 45% of the energy from the decomposition of this acid is spent directly on contraction, and 55% turns into heat and goes with the blood. It isn't very profitable, but nature has not yet come up with any other mechanisms, so we keep shivering when we're cold. Stretching. You've certainly noticed that not only people, but also animals, cats, dogs, and even lions stretch. The thing is that stretching is a reflex given to living beings by nature. Of course, not without reason though. It is very important for the normal functioning of the physical body, especially for the muscles. Stretching is used to awaken and stimulate the cortical area of the brain, which is responsible for arbitrary movements. It's like a gentle exercise after sleep to tone up the muscles and restore the blood flow. Our body is permeated by billions of capillaries, but not all of them are open and filled with blood all the time. During sleep, the muscles relax, and most of the muscle capillaries are closed, and the muscles receive just as much blood as they need at rest. When the body wakes up or moves, for example after sitting for a long time, more blood is needed. Then the body slightly strains almost all the skeletal muscles, giving them a little shake. The vessels don't open right away though, because sudden events, especially after sleep, are stressful for the body. So in order to remember to stretch, this action is associated with the center of pleasure. Sneezing. This specific defensive reaction of the body is aimed at removing from the respiratory tract everything that should not be there. This includes dust, mucus, pollen, smoke, in general everything that irritates the body and should get rid of quickly. When sneezing, the speed of the exhaled air can reach from 50 to 120 meters per second, and a large amount of saliva and mucus is released and can be carried on 2 or 3 meters around. In this way, the body tries to throw out the particles as far away as possible so as to not accidentally inhale them again. So it's better to cover your mouth when sneezing so you won't accidentally cover everyone around you with your particles. Yawning. It is believed that a person yawns on average 5 to 10 times a day. This process begins in the mother's womb, about 20 weeks after conception. Not only people yawn, but almost all mammals. However, the reasons and functions of yawning remained a mystery for scientists for a long time. This is not a sign of fatigue or boredom. Try to imagine a bored tiger. There are many scientific explanations for yawning though. Yawning helps you stay alert during stress. It regulates sleep and wakefulness cycles, cools your overheated brain and saturates your blood with oxygen. You often yawn when you feel lack of air. For example, if you're in a stuffy room for a long time. Often a person starts yawning when they are nervous. During stress, people hold their breath by reflex without even noticing it. As a result, the oxygen level in the blood drops and the body begins to fill in the gap. Yawning also easily occurs as a mimicking action, and the interaction is not limited to individuals of the same species. In other words, it's perfectly normal if you yawn after seeing your dog yawning. Tears. Tears are almost entirely made of water. The other components are inorganic. There is sodium chloride, which makes tears salty, and also sulfuric and phosphoric calcium, sodium and magnesium carbonate. But tears are needed not only to express strong emotions like joy or sadness, they perform several important functions, such as supplying the cornea, which doesn't have blood vessels, with all the necessary nutrients. Tears also remove foreign particles from the surface of the eyeball and generally support its normal functioning. Tears that are not related to emotions are called physiological, and even animals have them. Emotional tears are a protective reaction of the body in response to stress, and no matter what feelings caused your tears, positive or negative, they help the body to recover faster. Losing memories. It sometimes happens that a certain period of life or details of some events literally disappear from your memory, as if someone just wiped them off.
No, don't you remember me a little?
Even a person who usually remembers everything may face this, but probably there's no need to rush to the doctor for pills. Perhaps it's a question of displacement, a method of psychological protection. As a result of this process, feelings, memories, and even thoughts seem to be ostracized from memory because they're just too painful. Thus, the human psyche kind of protects itself, shielding us from too much emotional pain. Unfortunately, in most cases, the displaced memory still remains somewhere in the subconscious, and it often requires the help of a specialist to truly overcome them. Hiccups. Everyone's had to deal with hiccups. It's the sound we make when we try to breathe in the air, but we can't do it normally because of an involuntary diaphragm spasm. The vagus nerve passing from the thoracic cavity to the abdominal cavity is squeezed through the narrow opening in the diaphragm along with the esophagus. Of course, it's not difficult to traumatize us in such conditions. For example, irritation of the vagus nerve can occur when eating in a hurry, eating too much, or in an uncomfortable position when the nerve is squeezed. It also happens when you're frightened or when breathing abruptly. Sometimes hiccups are a sign of hypothermia, especially when it comes to small children. But what is the point? Due to the fact that compression of the nerve can harm many organs, the body reacts quickly to the inconvenience. It sends a signal to the central nervous system, which in turn activates the diaphragm nerve responsible for diaphragm contractions. In other words, our own body is telling us that it would be nice to straighten up, take a deep breath, and be careful with the food. Myoclonic twitches. What? Many of our viewers will be thinking, I've never had these things, but you must have faced something a bit like this. Quite often these twitches happen when you fall asleep. It seems that you're about to fall asleep and suddenly your body shakes pretty hard, like after an electric shock. Sound familiar? Well, in fact, these spasms are a very sudden and very short seizure of myoclonus, which can affect the whole body as well as individual muscle groups. But don't be afraid or think about going to the doctor immediately. In most cases, involuntary muscle contractions are not a symptom of illness. Myoclonus is associated with physiological causes such as muscle strain. After all, such sudden awakening often happens after a very hard day. In addition, they can be caused by smoking, excessive anxiety, caffeine, or some medications. Benign myoclonus doesn't need treatment though, but if the spasms become too strong and begin to interfere with sleep, you will have to undergo an examination, and then most likely to normalize your sleep schedule, spend more time outdoors, and do other healthy things that your parents once told you to do.
Psst, dude, are you looking for new technologies and great gadgets? Are your thoughts focused on the future? Do you love huge vehicles and can't imagine your life without robots around you? Then visit TechZone and you'll find all this and more. The link is in the description. You interested? Great.